What do you really know about testosterone?
The major effect of testosterone is to make effort feel good.
The sex hormone has a role in sexual health, motivation, and confidence, and according to the internet, testosterone levels are plummeting across the globe.
So testosterone levels today are lower now than they were pre-World War II.
10 signs your testosterone levels may be too low, putting you at future risk.
And men today, we're pretty much all running headlong off a testosterone cliff.
Testosterone in most men peaks at the age of 19, and then shortly after, your total testosterone drops by roughly 1.6% every year. So really, it's just a matter of time before it affects us all.
Which is why millions of men are turning to testosterone replacement therapy, also known as TRT, to stave off the inevitable decline of aging.
All that matters is that you have it in your system. If you don't have it in your system, you're not going to feel as good. It's real simple.
I did start TRT, so I do a baby dose of testosterone. 46, so 46. It was about time. I started that like 3 years ago.
It's hard to overstate the constant deluge of internet messaging that pushes just about every man to be concerned about their own testosterone numbers, because it seems to be a solution to just about everything. Companies everywhere sell custom formulas to bring your hormones into optimal male balance, to transform you from an underperforming, low-motivation, sex-starved geezer back into the vitality of your teenage years.
It's Project Rejuvenating Johnson's Johnson.
With every great promise, of course, there is a dark side. While testosterone treatments can be transformative and life-saving for people with diagnosable clinical deficiencies, a series of news stories and academic papers over the last few years indicate that a lot more men are on testosterone now than there should be. If anything, we are in an overprescription epidemic.
But it kind of blows my mind that these TRT clinics are up all over the place, given how bad. I mean, I see the results because I have patients that come from them. And I don't understand why they're so incompetent.
I actually think it's worse than that. I think that they simply don't understand and don't care because it's a pill mill and it's a money mill.
Testosterone is the kind of business that starts off by making a patient feel better, but ultimately destroys their ability to produce testosterone naturally, hooking them on an expensive hormone regimen for the rest of their lives.
I never thought about it, but that sounds that sounds about like a pretty good business strategy for these predatory practices. Yeah.
When I started researching the story, I wanted to understand how the massive influx of sex hormone supplementation has altered the way that Americans talk about masculinity. It was going to be an investigation into how top influencers and podcasters in the manosphere directly profit off of affiliate marketing deals with testosterone companies. And while that is indeed the case, something as obvious as just watching the end credits of almost any YouTube video pumping TRT.
Channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below, including my TRT clinic.
There's a new 12-week full gym program inside the Swole app. Get after it.
There actually appears to be something much stranger and insidious going on here, because testosterone doesn't only initiate physical changes. Studies on humans and animals show that it also alters a person's personality in a way that affects all of their social interactions. And this research really blew my mind, because if a substantial portion of the top influencers in the manosphere are taking testosterone, then it is reasonable to assume that this hormonal filter actually changes the way they talk about, well, just about everything. They're running an experiment where they are effectively giving a voice to a hormone. But before I get into that, we first need to talk about the actual well-studied benefits of testosterone replacement therapy. Here's endocrinologist Karl Nadolsky.
Testosterone replacement therapy is absolutely appropriate and indicated and generally beneficial and safe for those who have diseases causing hypogonadism, which is hypothalamic pituitary or testicular disease of a variety of causes.
For clinical cases, testosterone can be completely revolutionary, a huge positive for people who are severely deficient. But therein lies the rub. For people who don't actually have critically low levels, initial administration of testosterone often feels pretty darn good. Supplement takers often report that they feel the boost that they have been primed to expect from podcast commercials and influencers. They perceive themselves as improving across all axes of life. This is a somewhat similar effect to a drug dealer offering the first dose for free, knowing that they're going to hook a customer for life once the euphoria transforms into addiction. The problem, of course, is that artificially high levels start a cascade of changes in the body where a person stops being able to produce testosterone endogenously, and without the supplement leading to a situation where a person might become physically dependent on T in just a few months. In time, those changes become permanent.
Testosterone therapy, if you don't need it, causes you to then have hypogonadism. It shrinks your testicles, right?
And it's not just shrunken balls. High testosterone is linked to infertility, blood clots, heart problems, depression, anxiety, and mania. From the honest clinician's point of view, this is a nightmare scenario where patients taking too much testosterone end up with a whole suite of problems that mask the underlying symptoms that brought them to testosterone in the first place. But from a certain cynical capitalistic perspective, the physical dependence that testosterone can set off is a pill mill's perfect business plan. Once you get someone hooked, they have no choice but to take testosterone for the rest of their lives. Does this sound like any other big pharma business plans that you might have come across before? While mainstream pharmaceutical companies have been advertising TRT for decades, the advent of online retail led to an explosion in prescriptions. According to the Journal of the American Medical Association, between 2017 and 2019, online prescriptions for erectile dysfunction increased 1,500%, with spending on testosterone reaching more than $400 million a year. Then, during COVID, prescriptions exploded yet again. Testosterone retailers like Get Blokes and TRT Nation, Henry Meds, Regen Health, Defy Medical, and just so many more started advertising testosterone replacement therapy to massive online audiences with commercials and influencer sponsorships. All you need to do to get it is book an online appointment, and just like when I got my medical marijuana card when I lived in California, prescriptions are all but guaranteed. In 2022, the urologist Justin Dubin wanted to know exactly how easy it was to get an inappropriate prescription from an online telehealth website.
I can tell you with 100% confidence, most of the information online is bad. Most of it is not given by a healthcare professional. And most of the people who are not healthcare professionals are probably pushing some kind of product. That's what our data showed, right?
He posed as a secret shopper with normal labs who would not be eligible for testosterone in any ordinary circumstance from a real reputable clinic. But predictably, 6 out of 7 companies he approached prescribed testosterone even though he didn't meet the criteria. 50% of companies recommended a target goal of 1,000, the very upper limit of what is considered safe, and is a more typical level for a teenager than an aging adult man like myself. And incidentally, that's the sort of target high T number that you hear bragged about all across the manosphere.
I got 935 points.
So not only are people potentially getting hooked on testosterone who shouldn't have been prescribed it in the first place, but the companies themselves are targeting levels that are more appropriate for men who are 20 years younger. Which begs the question, should we really be trying to emulate the mental states of teenagers? Could there be an evolutionary reason that testosterone declines over the course of a man's lifetime? Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, I was an insufferable twat most of the time who had very little sense of self-preservation. Okay, I sort of walked into that one, but if you think I'm insufferable now, I promise you my 18-year-old self would be just so much worse. It's almost like the sales pitch for testosterone is tailor-made for guys who peaked in high school. You'll get your vigor back, you'll want to have sex constantly, and you'll be more confident. Probably overconfident.
The problem with steroids is that they work.
And this is where things get really strange. I mean, like mind-bendingly strange, because I think it's safe to assume that most of the famous people talking in favor of TRT are themselves on it. And while their programs might vary a little bit from one another, the actual research literature points to some very specific personality changes that come when someone supplements with too high levels of testosterone. A 2012 article in the International Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism reviewed the available literature and concluded that, quote, in more sensitive laboratory paradigms, it has been observed that participants' testosterone rises in the winners of competitions, dominance trials, or in confrontations with fractious opponents. In other words, testosterone reinforces the drive to dominate other men. The researchers noted that the brain pathways led to more aggressive behavior in men, and this isn't shocking on its own. But there was a more recent paper by two researchers at Cambridge called The Role of Testosterone in Social Interaction, where they looked at direct physical aggression, economic competition, and face-to-face interactions with other men with high testosterone, and concluded that it appears that testosterone promotes status-seeking and social dominance motives, and thus plays an important role in social status hierarchies. And this is the most important point. There is nothing more hierarchical than the relationship between a top alpha male podcaster and their audience of millions. The relationship constantly reinforces the host's own perception of dominance, which is also the image that they sell to their audience to emulate. Don't just take it from me. Take it from the internet's chief neuroscientist, Andrew Huberman.
It is healthy for there to be competition and hierarchy among young men. And when I say that, I mean that's the way that many young men traditionally, but still now, sort out what they're good at, what they're less good at. What we're missing nowadays is the opportunity to engage in healthy competition and hierarchy and be celebrated for that. And I look at this as just a healthy aspect of becoming a man.
While researching this video, I did a deep dive into the anthropological and sociological literature on hierarchy, and it would probably be a great video all on its own. But the most important takeaway of that about 5 hours of research is that basically zero of the last 100 years of research on hierarchy has been reduced to the level of neuroscience conclusively. Instead, the whole reason CNN brought Huberman on to talk about the decline of masculinity is because they bought into his alpha male shtick.
Well, the word masculinity holds a different meaning to many. To try to better understand this question is Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman, who hosts one of the top health podcasts in the world.
They could have been speaking to any other influencer in the manosphere, from Joe Rogan or Dan Bongino, Ben Shapiro, Lex Friedman, Aubrey Marcus, Lewis Howes, Stephen Bartlett, Brian Johnson, Andy Frisella, Peter Attia, Tim Ferriss, and I could go on, but you get the idea. These influencers sell the dream of being alpha males among alpha males. That dominance mode of thinking trickles down to places where men congregate and talk about podcasts and establish their mutual hierarchies. In the gym, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu studios, in offices and the workplace. And it needs to be said that the very dominant traits that they are associating with their enhanced form of masculinity are themselves enabled by the hormones that I assume they are pumping into their bodies. In other words, this is gender-affirming care for alpha males. And maybe this is what explains the manosphere's fixation on trans athletes competing unfairly in women's sports. They want to police other people's medical decisions while having access to the exact same options themselves. That seems like a dominance fixation to me. But there's another way to think about it too. One that goes back to World War II, when our testosterone levels were supposedly more robust. In the 1940s, Nazis were looking for an edge on the battlefield, and everyone from regular soldiers in the Nazi army all the way up to Hitler himself were hopped up on amphetamines to give them superhuman levels of energy and ultimately terrible decision-making abilities. Now, historians have come to interpret certain characteristic Nazi behavior through the pharmacological lens of amphetamines. And maybe we should take the same approach now when we think about how testosterone supplementation affects our current political discourse. It's not hard to find evidence of most of these guys talking about their own testosterone supplementation.
The replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy, I started doing all that when I was 40.
Many of them even sell protocols, testing kits, and access to prescriptions to get you hooked on tea for life. Some physical changes are potential giveaways too, like the thickening skin you see on RFK Jr. That on its own isn't a dead giveaway, more like a rule of thumb. Luckily, it's something that he happily confirms in interviews.
I'm on an anti-aging protocol from my doctor that includes testosterone replacement.
Of the manosphere icons I've mentioned, the only one that I know personally is Andrew Huberman, who I met back in 2018, and he seemed to undergo a personality change, at least from my perspective, once he released his podcast and started to get famous in 2021. This was from an interview he gave just a few years ago.
I didn't touch testosterone from an exogenous source until I was 45.
Now, I did the math on that when he was 45, and it turns out that Huberman started taking testosterone the very same year that he began his podcast. In short order, Huberman went from being a relatively sane science educator into a jacked, mega influencer who shills every product under the sun and overstates his expertise on just about everything outside his narrow understanding of neuroscience. Now, I've done a bunch of videos on Huberman. If you want to know more, go check out this one titled Documenting Andrew Huberman's Lies. I think you can understand the point that the very things that were being promised by pumping up our testosterone levels are the very images that the icons of the manosphere sell to their audiences. And it's likely that if they are on superclinical doses of the sex hormone, that it is also, almost by definition, influencing their messaging in a constantly self-reinforcing cycle. At the end of the day, this is all part of the big wellness grift that is indicative of everything that I've been covering on this channel over the last 2 years in my Liars, Cheats, and Charlatans of the Griftiverse series. Protocols often present themselves in ways to restore your natural vigor, but end in business plans backed by venture capital and pharmaceutical companies. In the case of testosterone, overprescription by commercial compounding pharmacies that you will no doubt get ads for when you watch this video are leading to personality changes among a broad swath of America and possibly literally shrinking its balls too. Remember that once you start going on testosterone inappropriately, you will almost inevitably make it impossible for you to create your own testosterone internally. You'll be sending your money to big pharma for the rest of your life just to feel normal. And again, I have nothing against medically responsible testosterone replacement therapy. It can be life-saving. I'm just skeptical of any person who goes to a clinic having already bought into a treatment plan that might not be appropriate to them because they saw it advertised somewhere. While YouTube videos offer a convincing veneer of medical expertise, I wouldn't trust a single one of them with a customized plan and an affiliate link. So that's all I have to say about testosterone for now. I should probably do another video about the same scams that target women going through menopause. If you want to know more about that, go check out Dr. Jen Gunter, who has a Substack called The Vagenda. It's a great place to start sifting out science from science misinformation. And while I have no plans to ever sell you a supplement or a ball shrinking protocol, I do have a Substack newsletter where you can support the feisty independent journalism that I do here, and I would love you to sign up for a free subscription to get early access to my videos and my thoughts that don't make it here on the channel. And should you want to be a true patron of journalism and support this channel with a premium membership, you would be keeping me on the air and doing a small part in fighting the liars and cheats and charlatans who are currently winning at the internet and to some degree the government. If you're interested, go check out the link in the pinned comment below, or just go type into the URL browser above sgcarney.substack.com. Every one of my members is a national treasure. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. From Pokey Bear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates. Thank you so much to all of my supporters on Patreon and on Substack who make this work possible. If you want early access and to get your name on the honor roll, please check out those links down below. And, it just means the world to me that you're here. From Pokey Bear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates.